We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, June 17th here in Seoul. I'm your host, Lee Sujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kwon Juyeon.
Good morning, Sujin.
Good morning to you too, and Yoon Sang-yeol.
Happy Tuesday, you guys.
Happy Tuesday to you too. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Tuesday, and just like we do most Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we're going to begin with our keyword news. So today's keyword is G7. The notable turnout by young voters in the recent presidential election underscores their role in shaping South Korea's political future. Amid this surge in political interest, President Lee Jae-myung is making his diplomatic debut at the G7 summit, where he is expected to speak on topics such as diversifying energy supply chains and the integration of AI in energy systems. The presidential office is also coordinating bilateral meetings with G7 leaders. So, Juyeon, why do you think young people have become more interested in politics recently? And what do you think are some of the issues they'll be focused on when it comes to the G7 summit?
Well, I reckon more young generation, more young people are more active these days in these politics because the decisions being made affect their future directly. So issues like climate change, economic stability, and technology related to AI are especially relevant to them as these challenges are already part of their everyday lives. At the G7 summit, I do believe that they will focus on energy security, AI regulation, and international cooperation as well. The young generation want leaders to act responsibly, and it's no longer just about politics, it's about their lives. So politics isn't old school anymore.
It's safe to say that politics is very in these days. So do you have anything to add to this, Sang-yeol?
Well, it has to do with the deep-seated anxiety that is placed deep inside the heart of the younger generation. So issues like climate change, AI, and economic uncertainty are now getting serious, directly impacting the lives of the MZers. And also platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter have turned politics into daily conversation, and algorithms amplify political content, and activism is literally scroll-worthy for the users of the AI and social media, which draws Gen Z deeper into civic debates. Now, for this year's G7 summit, they would expect topics like climate crisis and economic instability to be brought up to the table. And also with the recent escalating arms conflict between Israel and Iran, global peace and security will also be one of the noteworthy topics to be discussed.
And I think what you said about social media encouraging participation from Gen Zs really is important to talk about. For example, last summer, there was a huge trend about Brat Summer.
All right.
And people said that would represent how Gen Zs felt like their participation in politics were, bold, a bit chaotic, but also very deeply aware. And also, like you said, when it comes to the G7 summit, it's very clear that people are interested in, for example, economic uncertainty and climate change because it really impacts their lives directly. So I guess those are the issues that we can look forward to from the G7 summit. And that concludes our key news for this Tuesday. So now we're going to shift gears and move on into our main discussion of the day. So today in the News Generation, we're diving into how AI is being used across society, from schools and jobs to even job interviews. So before we do that, so let's take a look at the screen to see what we'll be unpacking today. The rise in the adoption of generative AI tools is reshaping the landscape of education. By streamlining tasks and helping to personalize learning, generative AI offers potential benefits for both students and educators. But it also raises ethical concerns around academic integrity and fairness. Today on News Generation, we're diving into how the spread of generative AI has led to a boom in AI detection software, which has raised concerns over inaccuracies as some tools are wrongly labeling original work as plagiarism. So today, as we dive into how AI is being used across society, it's being used in schools and jobs to even job interviews. So let's start with how it's impacting students. So I heard filming yourself while doing assignments is trending among college students. Sang-yeon, what is this all about?
Yeah, so at first I thought they were filming vlogs about their assignments, but no, it turned out that they were actually filming on how they're doing the assignments to prove that the AI assistant was actually not involved when they were doing the task. So for example, a college student in the US was notified that his personal assignment had been flagged as AI chatbot plagiarism and was given a 0. In reality, the student had written it himself, so fortunately the editing history in Google Docs showed the writing process, allowing him to overturn this decision. And as such incidents increase, more college students are now recording videos of themselves working on assignments as evidence to submit to their professors.
Wow, that really just emphasizes how far students are having to go to prove that their work is their work. It's also kind of ironic how they're kind of using technology to prove that they're not using technology. And so, but this also shows how common generative AI has become. So Ji-yeon, can you tell us how common it is and how exactly students are using it?
It's quite common indeed. Well, according to a recent survey, 78% of university students say they use generative AI in their studies. It found that 89% of students use AI in order to write essays and assignments, while 73% turn to AI to look up information for their coursework. And it's not just in Korea. According to global education platforms, 8 out of 10 students worldwide also use AI tools in some way. So AI is now a normal part of student life, but there's still no clear social agreement on how it should be used. So that's why we keep seeing debates on campus these days. Some students let AI do the whole assignment, and others just use it to gather some information. But where do we draw the line here? What exactly counts as plagiarism? There aren't clear rules, regulations yet, and even detection tools aren't always accurate. That's why professors make mistakes, as Sang-yeon mentioned. And when it comes to exams, there are also concerns about fairness. Some say using AI gives certain students an unfair advantage. So at this rate, think about it, your group project best member might be an algorithm next time.
That's actually, I love that line. The best member in your group is an algorithm. And also, it also leads a question of why, like it's when you see AI doing all the heavy lifting, like where can we find real collaboration? And so this makes me wonder, like, what have you seen on college campuses? Because I feel like you have a lot to add to this since you also teach at a college.
Right, so definitely universities are coming up with clear guidelines and standards in terms of using AI in classes. So in the case of Korean universities, some are declaring ethical pledges or making efforts to operate dedicated platforms. However, the approaches vary by universities and the overall sentiment differs from country to country. And in most cases, whether AI is allowed depends on the individual professor, and many students actually feel this is quite unfair and inconsistent. Now, as someone who also teaches students at college, I set the rules for AI use in my classes and make prior notices about them on the first day of the class. Now, for assignments, I leave it to students' own will since it's kind of hard for me to check all of them. But for exams, AI use is strictly prohibited. And as you know, because interpretation tasks are taken in real time, which means the students just don't have time to use them, or even though they want to cheat, they cannot do it intentionally. So in that sense, I think the criteria for AI use in class will also differ from major to major.
Right, you made a really good point about how it matters from major to major, because while things like interpretation is very performance-based, other majors that require more written assignments might be harder to catch for those stuff. So to hear another perspective on how generative AI is reshaping schools, we'll be joined by Bhavika Chaudhary, a student from India who's currently studying in the States, right after the break. Don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
We're joined today by Bhavika Chowdhury, a Gen Z student from India who's currently living in the United States. So can you just tell us what you're studying right now?
Hi, I am studying computer science in the US.
Right, so I feel like you're the best person to ask this question. So during final seasons, where and how do you actually use AI in your studies?
I would say for finals, we like to use AI as mostly a smart assistant who would help me think through problems or to improve on what I'm thinking. I like to ask it questions or get, answers that I should be answering in my exams. Yeah, kind of like a smart assistant, is what I would say.
So, Bhavika, are there any specific rules, restrictions, or standards about AI use at your school or in your classrooms?
Yes, in most universities in the US, including mine, we're still figuring out clear policies, but generally using generative AI, especially during exams or for assignments that are meant to reflect our independent work, is just not allowed. Professors include AI use guidelines in the syllabus, and some encourage it, but only with proper citations, and some just completely say no to it.
Okay, Bhavika, since you're also majoring in computer engineering, what do you think is the right way to use generative AI?
Yeah, I think generative AI should definitely be used to support learning because it's the way going forward, but it should not replace learning. I think it's great to help you understand things better and to give you a new way to think about a problem, but you still need to think for yourself. And as CS students especially, we also learn how these tools and generative AI actually work, and that helps us look at the bigger picture and being aware of the bias and how to use AI responsibly and knowing when it's okay to use it and not.
Right, so I guess even in the United States, this is something that we in Korea can also kind of relate to. So thank you so much for sharing your insight today. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. It was great being here.
So we just heard from a computer science student currently studying in the US, sharing her experience with AI in the classroom. But schools are just one part of the story. June, what broader shifts in society are we seeing because of AI?
Well, AI is already reshaping our work and life, and it's happening very, very fast. It's being used to create advertisements, answer customer service calls, and even handle translation. In fact, I have experienced it firsthand. We do have, some will probably already know, Arirang has the AI tool. At Arirang Radio, AI was once used to read the news, a very job I do as a news presenter. And ironically, the AI couldn't do it all on its own, so it leaned on me a lot. I had to write the script for her, adjust the delivery time, prepare the content, and fit within the broadcast time. I was literally training the thing that would eventually take over my job in the future. Still, I tried to learn from the experience so I could get the most out of it. Well, AI is being adopted in all kinds of surprising ways. These days, AI is also being used in job interviews, loan approvals, visa applications, and even deciding your insurance premium. And in Korea, only about 1 in 5 companies use AI in recruitment. But if you look at the cases abroad in the US, some job applicants have got to answer the AI questions. They have even taken companies to count over AI-based hiring decisions. And it won't be long before AI says, I've got a lot on my plate.
Well, it does if it's participating in loans and also job interviews. It's doing the most. So, Kang, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I feel bad for Ari. Okay, so one thing that I noticed was that AI interviews are also being rapidly adopted by companies to ensure fairness. However, the problem is that AI makes decisions based on the data it has been trained on. So if that data includes biased cases from the past, the AI can also end up making discriminatory judgments. So for example, there have been cases where AI favored male candidates, or they also displayed racial bias in UK visa applications. And another concern is that companies might use AI as a means to evade their responsibility for such incidents.
the things you mentioned, as someone who's also sat in job interviews, and I'm sure both of you have also as well, I can imagine the amount of added anxiety that would give as with having to deal with AIs as well. And it's clear that people have strong opinions about the use of AI in job interviews. We ran a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel asking viewers who they would prefer as their interviewer, a human or a system based on artificial intelligence. So we asked, who would you prefer to evaluate you in an interview? 76% of the respondents said they would prefer being interviewed by a human professional, and only 18% chose an AI system, while 6% said they had no preference. So it looks like most people still trust humans more than AI when it comes to interviews. And as AI is used in more and more parts of our lives, it raises a big question of how we can use this technology in a way that truly works for us. So Chuyeon, before I let you go, with generative AI evolving so quickly, how do you think we should be using it? Is it even possible for us to find the right balance for this?
Well, the right balance, I think that's the key word that we've got to think a lot these days. Well, the other day my son was filling out a workbook where the question was, how do penguins swim so well? Then if you got those kind of questions, you've got to think and think and think. But the answer that he wrote was, ask generative AI.
Already?
Yes, already.
I feel old.
But think about it. At home, we are surrounded by those AI tools a lot. Smart speakers that play music on command, robot vacuums that clean when told. So most daily tasks, AI seems very convenient. It will do the trick. Our children are growing up in a world of instant answers. As a news presenter and someone who is preparing for an PhD, I see great value in AI, but worry about over-reliance on those AI tools. But it mustn't replace thinking, questioning, or curiosity itself. We've got to have these critical thinking. I hope we teach our children not just to ask AI, but to think, wonder, and search on their own. And this is a job that we've got to do it as well. That's why we need to teach children how to ask better questions, verify information, and combine AI input with their own reasoning, not just copy, but challenge. AI is absolutely smart, but your brain is still the boss, right?
And I think you bring up a great point about how critical thinking might be harder to learn, especially for young children, because it's so easy to rely on these easy, quick, instant answers. And it's really tough to draw lines for this because people are so reliant on this. People are almost using ChatGPT as therapy. People ask for advice and also rely on it for emotional support. And I too have done so before. So Sang-hyuk, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, generative AI should augment our capabilities instead of just replacing the human labor completely. But in reality, it is true that some part of the industries are currently being replaced by artificial intelligence dominance. Now, in education, for instance, AI can help brainstorm the ideas or check grammar, but the thinking, judgment, and originality should come from people's brain. We should use AI to expand access to quality education, healthcare, and legal advice, not just for the privileged few, but for underserved communities as well. And if we are to guide the use of AI in the right direction, we must first have clear standards. So governments and institutions must set boundaries on harmful uses like deepfakes or surveillance while encouraging innovation. So developers of AI must also prioritize privacy and inclusivity from the ground up. And it's not just governments and tech companies, but also for artists, workers, policymakers, and educators like me to play a significant role in making clear guidance for the next generation, like the son of Chuyeon.
So clearly the question isn't whether we'll use AI or not, but it's more about how we choose to use it and who will get to shape these rules. So I agree with what both of you said about how it's important to think about how we as individuals navigate this and how we can move forward with AI and use it in a way that is responsible and fair. And that's all we have for this episode of News Generation. But NewsGen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Chuyeon.
Thank you for having me, Sujin.
Thank you for being here. And Sang-hyuk.
It was an honor to be here.
Good to have you for being with us today. And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are
News Generation.